This B2B SaaS founder built a project management tool that promises absolute clarity. In this clarity jam, we dig into how to make their hero actually sell the pain they solve, why a simple founder led demo video could outconvert fancy scripts, and how niching down to small software agencies turns a crowded category into a clear blue ocean lane. Let's get into it.
I'm Arseny. I'm the founder of To-Do-Space project management software.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us on Clarity Jams today, Arseny. So if you don't mind me asking, what kind of inspired you to start To Do Space?
It's our own pain that we've experienced building and working on a lot of projects, that there's a lack of clarity, information is scattered. It's very hard to understand what's going on in the project, what's the progress. And the worst is, so as an engineer, I've interacted primarily with project managers. So what's the status question every week, almost every day sometimes, and that lack of clarity, what's the status, is what actually started this and inspired this project.
Got it. And who is kind of the ideal customer of your product management app?
We've pivoted several times in terms of who is the ideal customer as we've learned things talking to the users. And currently, we're building for and targeting specifically the owners of small agencies, software consulting agencies that have their customers, they have their projects, and they need to invoice the customers. They have a team of engineers and maybe designers or like cross-functional teams, and these people need to report their time so that the owner of that agency can invoice the customer, tell them that this is not just whatever number of hours and amount of dollars, but it's also tied to this particular work that we've done. And every week, usually, this kind of person sends a status report and to the customer saying that this is what we've accomplished, this is what happened, this is what's going on. This kind of information is readily available with To-Do-Space.
Got it. And what are they doing? So walk me through how somebody initially hears about To Do Space and then what they kind of do before they even start a free trial. Like, what are they thinking?
So I'm trying to have several points explicitly called out in the landing page, and there are specific several landing pages for these particular features. So project management is a very abstract area, and it comprises of several places where people experience a lot of pain. So one of them is estimates, and then eventually estimates versus actuals. So we're into the space, we're solving for this problem by connecting your task data and timesheets to your estimates in real time. Therefore, you can always track, are you on track or not, versus estimates. So there's that part. Another part is that some project managers need to use work breakdown structure just to have deliverables nicely outlined. And typically that lives in somebody's spreadsheet while your tasks are worked on in a task tracking system, which is again disconnected. So for that, there's another specific landing page that you can connect your deliverables and task tracking. Same way timesheets. People hate timesheets. I hate timesheets. Everyone hates timesheets. But we hate them not because it takes too much time, but because it's very hard to actually connect. Sometimes we multitask. Sometimes we're not registering what we're working on. So on a Friday, you have to scramble and go look into your calendar, your commit history, your Slacks and whatever, just to figure out what did I work on this week. And it's a frustrating exercise. And especially for engineers who do not really understand in a lot of cases that we do timesheets not to control you, but we do timesheets to invoice the customer so that the customer can pay you and will not challenge you that why there's 40 hours here or 8 hours there. So there's that as well. And specific page for status reports, because a lot of cases project managers are asking, like, how do we send a status report, what format? But more importantly, it's not the format, it's the information in that status report. So that's why there is like several distinct pages that people would search for on Google and maybe finding a solution.
Got it. Let's say they found you, they signed up for a free trial. What's the first thing that they're doing?
The first thing is that they will have to go through some onboarding. So there will be a little tiny widget that will show like, well, hey, this is a work breakdown structure. This is how you organize your information, and they will need to do these little tiny things. Complete a task, create a board, move boards, merge boards, and stuff like this, which should take less than 10 minutes in total, the entire onboarding. And after that, they may just usually play around and create some test project and then do things there just to see how it feels. Because in project management, you do not really get the aha moment immediately. It's something that takes a while and people rely on feelings.
Got it. And what were they using before you?
Usually people come from very different backgrounds, but currently in my experience, it's some lightweight task tracking such as Trello or mixes of Asana plus some plugins and Jira plus some plugins.
And so basically they're using Asana or something like that. How does your software help them how is your software different than?
Yeah, so my fundamental belief is that it's different in the way that it doesn't solve just for task tracking, which is only one part of project management, but solves for more parts of project management, such as tracking estimates, tracking actuals, tracking timesheet, if it's applicable, and having status reports as a out-of-the-box thing, because it's usually where people improvise a lot, create filters in Jira, create some strange dashboards. Sometimes they create private filters, don't share with the team, so the team and the manager are not on the same page, and that leads to creating meetings, ad hoc meetings, like writing the status report together with teammates.
Got it. So the first thing I am seeing is absolute project clarity without chasing people for status updates. Okay, so and then task tracking, automated timesheets, and status reports, estimates and actuals, all in one place. Obviously, the first thing is it definitely does match the fact that most people are signing up because of the pain of estimates. So that's there. My question to you is, this does kind of share that pain point of estimates, but it also is somewhat generic. The same thing could be said maybe for Asana or any number of other project management. Is there anything specific about To-Do Space where the way you kind of set up estimate is unique or different, or even just the clientele that you have, the customers that you have? Is there certain spaces within this that, kind of match that so it can be much more specific to you?
So I had some very different but still horror stories about time tracking, so that your estimates and actuals a report cannot be created properly. One of the people I've interviewed, they installed plugins, then they switched for time tracking. Then they switched to ClickUp and used another time tracking. Then something was not computing correctly there when it comes to the point when you need to create invoices. And mind you, they had timesheets separate again. So they ended up pretty much building a data lake and a Power BI dashboard to do that. So it's like everyone has their own very specific horror story, and I'm honestly struggling to kind of understand how do I make it more specific and less generic, given that variety of horror stories. And the typical, not a horror story, but a mundane, dark reality is you have a spreadsheet here, spreadsheet there, and you're trying to get information from one person, from another task tracking system, from a timesheet system, and then you just work and manually accomplish this task with a lot of labor and frustration.
Got it. I want to circle back on that, but beforehand, if you want to kind of scroll down to the first example, because I know you have one where it's kind of shows, okay, where you have kind of here the week. I like that kind of screenshot. Is that kind of what's inside of your actual software?
Yeah, exactly. So you do not have comments section that you actually submit 4 hours and then you say what I worked on. The system will track it automatically. And here you will see that MVP project. Mm-hmm. There it goes. And you have your tasks, and all the hours will be connected to the tasks, and based on their status, it will derive whether it's missing. For example, there was a timesheet but no tasks, or there was a task in progress and then completed on this day, but there was no timesheet. And then there's you can approve and reject. So this is actually how it looks like in the app itself.
Got it. So that's really interesting. So now let's scroll back up to the top, seeing kind of how your software works. And your explanation was super, super helpful, by the way. I do wonder if one of the simplest ways you can kind of differentiate your project management app from the dozens and dozens out there is to either bring up the screenshots right in the hero, or even better yet, something I've seen now across of these clarity jams is, could you leverage the fact that you are the founder and doing something that a company like Asana can't do, who has hundreds or thousands of employees, and just do a quick impromptu demo video right within your hero section of you explaining and being like, I'm the founder, here's this tool, here's what we solve, and then explaining why that's so much more different than spreadsheets and or all of these other solutions out there. Whether you want to name competitors or not, completely up to you. There's super valid reasons to do that and super valid not to. That way, you're actually adding in a differentiator and making it very much clear, especially to companies and to customers who are like, you know what, I want to have the personalized support that a founder can give me that I'm not going to get when I'm just another number for a company like Asana.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So you would suggest having it somewhere right there, someone in
Yes.
this.
And then
Okay.
I would even spell out even more clear within that H1. I don't mind the H1 right now. It's just kind of a little bit generic and specify why this is so much better than spreadsheets and why it does such a much better job of estimates and for both for everyone on your team, not just the project manager. It could even be something like, estimates that your team loves, something like that, and gives you the visibility you need. You'll want to massage that based off of what your customers are telling you, but that could be a way to kind of differentiate that. Plus, you now have a video of yourself walking through the demo, so you now have the differentiation of being like, hey, you're not just another number, you're going to get personalized support, that sort of thing that a lot of companies will value.
Yeah, definitely. I should write a script and do that demo for sure.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be something like everyone always kind of gets in their own head. And I'm the first one to do this as well, where it's like, it needs to be perfect. You can reiterate those videos all the time. And I've literally seen the dozens of examples of it literally being a simple Loom video that maybe they record 3 or 4 different times until they get one that's better, post it up there, and that oftentimes outperforms, the really, fancy video scripts that, could take 3 to 6 months to create.
Yeah, no, that definitely, I know what you mean. And especially hearing your own voice in the video recording is one of the first things that aches you. Yeah,
absolutely. Whenever I just edit these clarity jams, I'm just like, oh, I should have said this differently.
Yeah, I know. And for somebody for whom English is not the first language, it's also like it's an additional impact. But yeah, I see what you mean. I definitely should definitely go ahead and make that video.
You have the unfair advantage that every founder has when they are early to mid stage, which is, hey, you can go out there and be like, as long as you're open to it, and being like, hey, this is, the founder actually cares, not only cares, but they actually, are in the weeds. So you can utilize that as an unfair advantage that big corporations can't do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You have to move a lot faster too and do things like publish your feature backlog or things like that if you or wanted to take, getting people to vote on things. There are good reasons and bad reasons to do that as well. That, are things that a big corporation would get annihilated for.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited now about that. Need to go and
I love it. If you want to keep scrolling down. So the next section I see is, okay, this is where I'm seeing task tracking that scales over your project. There's a graphic right here. One thing that's immediately missing, and I think your homepage is fine the way it is, there's a section that's just immediately mentioning right at the top, which is, if oftentimes I'll see on any sort of software businesses, you see like the row of logos or a testimonial or a flagship case study that is social proof. That kind of exists for a reason to kind of signify there are people using this. I would maybe challenge you. Can you put a testimonial directly below? I have it
here. So move it from made for you and put it to.
Exactly. Yeah. Move that. I would even say, yeah, you either use all 3 of them there, do a row of logos and right there, and then have your testimonials be right above pricing, something like that. But you just want to have some sort of social proof signaled right within the hero section or right below it. There's a reason why that row of logos exists there, and that's just because it solves that problem. Another thing I would maybe challenge you to do is, because you've iterated this over and over again, like the pain of estimates, I would add a section directly below the hero and then right after the kind of social logos or the testimonial row that just kind of elaborates a little bit more on that pain point around estimates. Spell it out a little bit clearer. It doesn't have to be a row of text. It could literally just be an H2 sort of thing, and maybe it's like a paragraph, and just kind of spell, or like an example, and just kind of spell out what the pain point is, because therefore you now have kind of your wedge at the top, which is estimates, making those better. Now you have social proof, you have the problem, and now you're going into the section where you're kind of talking through what your app actually does. And that's how you can actually make sure that your homepage is not only telling your story, but also doing it in a way that's going to convert. So you have the wedge, the logo, the problem, the pain points, and the solution, which you have here, and scroll down. So now you have timesheets you don't hate. Like it's kind of further reinforcing the estimates. Scroll down again. You have screenshots of your product. Again, this is a little long. I wonder if there's a way you can kind of make the design of this be consolidated a little bit more. But the actual features and screenshots make a lot of sense. And the interactiveness of this I do like. Yeah, I like the fact that it's interactive. You can kind of see it automatically. It's going to start a free trial. That makes sense. Again, I like the kind of interactive nature. I would maybe consider changing up the design so it feels a little bit more cohesive. But the overall fact that you're kind of seeing the visuals of the product is working in your favor.
That's pretty much how it actually looks in the app itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I like the interactiveness of it. I would maybe find a way to make sure that your H2s, those kind of subheads above it, are actually explaining that this is actually demos of the actual product.
Okay. Would you suggest to have it right somewhere above the?
Yeah.
Because I was trying. I was
Right
trying
now
to solve it.
From like scroll back to where you have like your status report done for you, or
Yeah.
So you have your status report done for you, and then you have that wall of text that doesn't really say anything. I would maybe consolidate all of that text down and make sure that it's very, very clear that they're actually seeing an interactive demo of the status report.
I was trying to solve it with having this click it button so that like it nudges you to same way everywhere. Like here you can see how like breakdown structure turns into Kanban, and then it like by nudging you to click it. That's what I was using to hint that it's interactable. But yeah,
like
definitely
it,
good.
but I don't know if that is obvious enough, because when I immediately looked at this page, I didn't even realize it was clickable until I saw that. But that kind of click it button isn't super intuitive.
To make it more straightforward, is this like a one sentence that I write somewhere that this is a like demo clickable and all that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can fix this, because I really like the fact that you have so many interactive demos on this page. I would maybe structure it so that it's not gigantic blocks with a gigantic blocks of text that don't immediately make it clear that this is an interactive demo. You could probably do this by having like a table layout. There's ways that you can get around it to make it way more clear that you're actually looking at individual sections of the app directly in your homepage.
Okay, I'll work on that.
And then scroll down. Yeah, so I would just kind of tighten up the text. Scroll down. Start a free trial. Scroll down.
That's
okay, cool.
We reached the
and now
end
you
of
have the final
internet.
thing. Start a free trial. I like it. That's interesting. So talk me through kind of the decision to use Slack in that way. That's kind of new to me. I haven't actually seen that be highlighted on a homepage before.
That was before. So basically the decision is between Slack and Discord, where do you do your little kind of feedback / community building. For me, it's more natural to use chat applications like Slack and Discord as opposed to. I don't feel like people send a lot of emails these days. I definitely like, at least for our case, I definitely see more people talking on Slack than sending emails with feedback or questions or anything. Most emails are not even related to product itself. So I was looking to build sort of a way to get feedback in a more real-time way, as in Slack, as opposed to emails or LinkedIn that I honestly do not really post a lot there. So that's the core reason.
Got it. I would maybe say if you do have a Slack community, maybe kind of spell that out somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be on your homepage, but just kind of spell out, instead of talk to us on Slack, it could be join the community or something like that, so that it's a little bit more clear why they would want to use it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds
awesome.
definitely.
Is there anything else before we wrap up?
No, this is what I can say is that this is definitely a challenge to have a positioning and a messaging on the landing page for such an abstract area as project management, where everyone imagines something different. Yeah, it's an interesting journey. Thanks for helping looking at this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely say just lean a little bit more into kind of your own unfair advantages, and even just sharing a little bit more of your story that inspired the app. Each of those are ways that you can actually leverage that within your positioning so that you stand out within a very crowded vertical.
Definitely reaching the audience has been also a challenge, given that most players put a lot of money into just brute forcing the user acquisition through expensive YouTube ads, and like you see very beautiful and funny ads by Monday.com and all that. which don't say much, but they're funny and they're everywhere. Sometimes you see them like 5 times in one day, and yeah, it's a challenging landscape.
Yeah, for sure. You can't necessarily trying to outcompete Monday.com would be a really tough task when you are a smaller app. So one of the ways you can kind of one of the ways you can lean into that is a little bit more of your story and kind of your own unique approach to estimate would be one way. The other thing that you might want to consider is, do you have a subset of customers within one vertical, or like another thing like a vertical, like within one specific vertical, so that you can actually make it way more apparent that you are the individual product management for that one niche vertical, as opposed to trying to compete toe to toe with the mainstream product management. So that could literally
Yeah,
look like becoming the best in class estimates for web dev agencies in Canada, for example. Something like that, where it's a little bit more niche, where you can have the chance to be the big player in a small font. And then once you've conquered that vertical, you can then go after a lot more. And that's how you expand market share.
yeah, definitely. That's why we pivoted to specifically small agents, small software agencies. And honestly, the entire timesheets features was built specifically for that. Because originally there was no timesheets feature. There was like it's still there. You can switch between two modes. There's smart kind of estimating of hours and spent based on your allocation. Like you say, I work 40 hours or like 20 hours a week on this project, so it will allocate that and in an automatic way. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would even consider putting that directly within your H1 even, and just being extremely clear. Hey, we are, how to get really good estimates, for specifically built for web software agencies. And like, and maybe even go even more niche than even that if you wanted to. And therefore you're becoming extremely clear. You conquer that entire market, and then you can expand out into web design agencies and so forth and so forth and so forth. And that's how you can build a very, very tight knit market share with like a very strong business. And then you are naturally are going to start to expand out.
I need to figure out the what would be the traction channel. How do I reach these users specifically? Because I think in like paid ads, it will be a very small niche that will be pretty much have no clicks whatsoever. Probably direct sales is the only viable way here, I guess.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, that is definitely both a pro and a con to this. Is it's much more likely to be a cold call, cold email, cold DM, organic social sort of play versus a throwing ads at it, because yeah, the TAM size is going to be smaller, but you also only really need 20 people in that market, and suddenly you're the market leader.
Yeah,
Or you can
I
at
should
least
try that. Yeah.
make a claim that you are like one of the market leaders within that space. You put that on your website, and then suddenly you now can start to go expand outside of it.
That's such a bold claim.
But that's also one of the advantages of going after smaller niches, is you can make those claims, and then it becomes way easier within 6 months or a year or 3 years to be like, hey, now we are the solution that all agencies use for estimates.
Yeah, well, I need to then work on that. I was planning to anyways, to build a list and then go one by one and craft a message and all that. Actually, in the middle of that, sort of.
Yeah, if you were to change your homepage to make it just way more apparent, or oftentimes if you're still trying to test out your messaging, just do a clone of it and make that be a landing page. Send that landing page over to them so that it feels like it's specifically meant for companies just like theirs. That's a way to kind of make that personalization attempt and also land a lot more free trials and customers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, is there anything else before we wrap?
No, I have now a lot of work to do. Make a list, go through the list.
I love it. Thank you for coming on to Clarity Jams.
Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.